The man who took a sport from illegal backyard fights to the global mainstream. The man who brought MMA to its heights while going against the legality of the sport, established organizations, and the boxing industry. Dana White. With all praise considered, as of late he has been making questionable decisions, and did he put himself in his own way in terms of UFC's success? No figure in modern sports is as directly tied to their sport as Dana White is. Starting out as a small-time owner of a boxing gym in Boston, Dana White would get himself into debt with a local Italian mobster that got serious. When given a deadline to pay back the debt, Dana White, fearing for his life, booked a ticket to Las Vegas.
And they're basically like, you owe us the money by tomorrow at 1 o'clock. I said, or what? Are you gonna find out? So I literally hung up the phone,
Hello,
picked it back up.
Delta, you got a flight.
Exactly what I did. I hung up, picked it back up, and got a one-way flight to Vegas.
This flight changed his life and MMA forever. In Vegas, Dana reconnected with his childhood friend Frank Fertitta, and together they purchased the UFC, and the rest was history. Dana and the UFC brass survived many close calls and found solutions through innovative approaches like the Ultimate Fighter reality TV show. As UFC expanded, they used an aggressive approach of buying up other MMA organizations and the rights to their libraries. Eventually, UFC was destined for clear domination of the market, and it reached it. With its attention to production value and matchmaking, UFC became synonymous with the sport itself. Even today in 2024, you can hear people say, "I train UFC," instead of saying that they train MMA. Due to the profitable business model, UFC became the place where the best of the best wanted to be in order to be seen and regarded as the greatest martial artists. This in turn helped UFC, as unlike boxing, they have majority of the best fighters under one organization, and matchmaking between the top talents became much easier than it is in boxing, where you have like 13 different organizations, with each having stars with undefeated records who refuse to fight other stars to hang on to their 0 defeats. We've seen the likes of Conor McGregor, Jon Jones, Ronda Rousey, Khabib Nurmagomedov, and Nate Diaz become superstars through their UFC run. Unfortunately, this may be where it will start going downhill for the UFC. In 2016, Zuffa was sold to a consortium led by WME-IMG for approximately $4 billion. Dana White owned 9% of the company at the time, and as a result profited handsomely from this deal, but he didn't go off in the sunset. Dana White signed to remain the president of operations under the new ownership as well. Having previously been instrumental in manufacturing many stars in the past and growing the company exponentially, he was the obvious choice for the job. However, it seems that slowly but surely, Dana White has been losing the grip on what the fans really want. At times, it seems like Dana, similar to a strict teacher or a dictator, prefers the fighters that suck up to him rather than those that make the most sense for the company. The two most notorious examples in recent history are Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson and Francis Ngannou. Mighty Mouse was perhaps the GOAT in his weight class, and was putting on exciting fights. However, as the general interest towards lower divisions is lower, Dana treated Mighty Mouse as purely a business equation, which is fine if it was also done with other fighters as well.
He wasn't very confident in his abilities to sell pay-per-views. He has the lowest selling pay-per-view in the history of the UFC in the modern era. So, number one. Number two, I think that a fight between him and TJ Dillashaw would be something that people would actually be interested in.
When Mighty Mouse wouldn't budge on his payout demands, Dana White threatened to close the division and cut him. Mighty Mouse stuck to his guns, and as a result was traded to ONE FC for the welterweight wrestler Ben Askren. The end result of this trade is that Ben Askren went 1-2 in the UFC and retired from the sport. While Mighty Mouse is still one of the premier athletes at ONE FC and is even more popular now than ever, the weight division also remains the UFC, and there is certainly no one in that division that laps Mighty Mouse in popularity or profitability. Francis Ngannou's incident was even worse. Ngannou bet on himself and wanted to negotiate better terms. Dana White in turn would try to discredit Francis Ngannou.
I think Francis is in a place right now where he doesn't want to take a lot of risk. Feels like he's in a good position where he could fight lesser opponents and make more money. So we're gonna let him do that.
How dare Francis desire to fight lesser opponents while making more money, as if that is not logically a better option. Dana White would blame Francis Ngannou for wanting too much money to fight John Jones. But John Jones was also holding out on his heavyweight debut. For that same reason, however, Dana paid him and didn't think that Francis was worth the money. Francis ended up latching a lucrative deal with PFL, which gave him rights to fight in professional boxing, and eventually make him the head of PFL Africa. Francis Ngannou fought Tyson Fury and knocked him down, eventually losing a split decision that many thought he won. While he did get brutally knocked out in his next fight by Anthony Joshua, he made more money in those 2 fights than he has in the entire UFC career. As for the fighters that stayed in the UFC, Dana has been misfiring on who he has been betting to be the superstar lately. He has pushed Adesanya to many title defenses, possibly burning him out, and failing to see upcoming stars in the division. He wanted to help Adesanya by forcing DDP to turn around quickly, and when he refused, he filled in Sean Strickland, hoping that it would be easy work for Adesanya, as Strickland would have been the biggest underdog to win a title if he won. And he did. Just look at the disgust on Dana's face when he put the belt on Strickland. He absolutely dreaded this moment. Yet it was nothing to dread. Sean Strickland has demonstrated himself to be a superstar while having absolutely zero push from UFC, zero filter, and just being authentic with his thoughts. Although he does get hypocritical at times, Dana was fearing something that shouldn't have been feared, as Strickland and DDP title fight sold over 500,000 PPVs, which is the same range in which Izzy usually sells in. Another one of his misfires is his desire to make Colby Covington a thing. No one has received more undeserved title shots than Colby, yet he keeps on getting them, and what for? Colby does not sell the same way Conor, and most of the time he's on stacked cards, which signals UFC's low confidence in him carrying sales on his own. There are speculations that this happens possibly due to blackmail extortion from Colby. And I hope that is true, as there is no logical explanation for this. Then there is Power Slap. I guess he named it that after what he's doing to fight fans. Having invested $500 million into it, there is absolutely no one other than gambling bookies who are happy for this league. Undefended slaps until knockouts is not something that the fans want. Worse than that is Dana's desire to shove Power Slap down the fight fans by including it with many UFC events and promotional material. That $500 million would be better off spent on fighter pay and retaining fighters like Mighty Mouse and Ngannou than to watch someone picked up from the side of the road put powder on their hand and slap each other. As counterproductive as it may sound, this is all happening precisely because Dana White has been immensely successful and accurate in the past. Doing what Dana White has done for MMA would inflate just about anyone's ego, and it would get to a point that you start thinking that all of your decisions are correct. There is also the fact that since the UFC already established itself and has the consumer's trust, there isn't a focus on fighting for its spot. You don't have to make sure you make absolutely zero mistakes as it was in UFC's early days. Everyone is human and makes mistakes and declines with age. In order for UFC to remain at the top, Dana White should either hire more people that he trusts, who aren't yes men, in order to move the company forward, or find a suitable successor to run the operations. As crazy as it sounds, UFC still has room to improve and can put other promotions even closer to their end.